Hello there, art fans. Today I'm going to give you the most basic lesson in the brush that there is. How to dip it in the ink. Now the first thing you have to do when you're starting out is your brush is probably dry. You have a jar of water and you just wet your brush a little. Then you need a cloth and just take off, because you just want your brush a little damp. And this is a Raphael number 3. Series 7 Winsor Newton number 3 was the brush I told you about before. I also like the Raphael, so I'm using that today. And then I usually have my ink in a jar. Now I keep both the water and the ink well on either side of my drawing table and out in side trays, because I want the ink away from the sweep of my arm, because I don't want to knock it over. I don't know, I want to knock over the water or the ink. But what you do is you dip the brush in the ink about halfway up the length of the brush hairs. Then you rub it against the side of the jar to kind of get a little excess off. And when you're first starting out, it's going to be, since I just made the brush damp with water, the ink isn't going to saturate the brush as much. So you got to do it a few times. This is all getting, then you can see how much ink I have on this. You twist and run this across just a little bit to point your tip. And then give it a sweep of the arm. And that is still a little gray. So we want some more ink in there. Like I said, this is just once you get the right amount of ink in your brush, you won't have to do this so many times again. But this is just how you start off, because the dampness of the brush, we're getting there. We want more. Said about halfway up the bristles. Let's get that brush saturated. Quick little twist of the wrist. Now it's getting darker. As you can see, we would just dip it in. Comes out much darker and usually a little thicker down the end of the tip if you don't point it on the paper. But there we go. Now it's starting to get a little darker. But you also have to make sure you stir up your ink before you use it, because it can settle. And let me show you, though I like the jar, because I can keep it well away from me and over to the side. Some people much prefer one of these, and I can see why, because let me get some jar of ink and I'll shake that up. You can put a few drops of this into one of those trays. Go. Oop, there we go. Got to get it in. Just a few drops of this in one of the trays. Now you can easily see the ink in your brush, and you can tip it off. You can point it right kind of on the side. It's a much lighter ink, so it's much more gray. So instead of see, I don't like this because I find it a little too messy. And I find my ink dries out too quickly and I have to add more and this and that, but a lot of people like this method. Especially it helps you starting out to see exactly how much ink you want in there. Boy, that's a light gray ink. That's why I don't use that ink too much. I find it a little too light gray. Matter of fact, I'll show you the ink I prefer. Had to walk over and get my jar of it. This is my favorite ink at the moment. Sennelier India ink. I think it's French. But this is the ink I've been using lately. It's a little thick. I put, like I said, I tip some of it into this jar here, and I'm good to go with it. See, that's puts in my usual spot. Dip it. There you go. Dip it in the ink. There we got it. See, I'm not bothering to point it at the moment because I'm just trying to get it saturated. You can see how much more it's getting saturated, and since I'm not pointing it, the points on the end are a little blunter. Now that it's good and saturated, I'll point it with a quick roll on that paper. Move that out of the way. And now it's giving me the thick to thin I want. Then, when you're all done for the moment, you just put it in your jar of water. Then wipe it off and put it away. But there is the simplest ink lesson there is. But if you don't know it, it's good to know how to dip your ink, dip your brush into the ink to get things going. You guys have a good time out there.